Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we are joined by one of the great musicians in jazz today. This gentleman has been on the scene for over 40 years and has worked with many greats from McCoy Tyner to Dave Holland, World Saxophone Quartet, and John Hicks, to name a few. He is a saxophonist, composer, arranger, and educator. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Eric Person. Brother, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Well, I wanted to jump into this, man. I am curious to know a little bit more about you and your background. I understand that you're from St. Louis, and the first thing that pops up in my mind when I think of St. Louis is all the great trumpeters that have come out of St. Louis, from Miles Davis, Bix Beiderbecke, Clark Terry, so many. I mean, I can just go on. I think Josephine Baker also was from that area, and but no, just a lot of great musicians. But I want to know a little bit more about your background. I understand that you started playing saxophone at age 7, and your father, who was also a saxophone player, was instrumental in getting you sort of started with that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. My father, Thomas Person, he was a saxophonist. It wasn't his career or anything, but he was a businessman, actually, and he had his own heating and air conditioning company.
Yeah.
And my father used to listen to jazz on the weekends, mainly Sunday, and he would play his saxophone. He'd be playing with the records and everything. And I just remember listening to him, and I just, at an early age, I was like, how's he doing that? He's like creating, without music and all that stuff. And so he said at age 7, I came to him and said I was ready, And so he started showing me the basics of the instrument and everything. And actually, after that phase, I started studying with some private teachers at like music stores and everything. And then after that, we moved out from the city of St. Louis out to the county, which is Normandy. And so I went in the 5th grade, I started my first orchestra playing, and I just remember, I was able to read and everything because I had good teachers and everything, but I wasn't able to challenge the guys who were sitting in front of me. It was 2 other guys. And it kind of bugged me, it was like, I can't challenge these guys, to get in the first chair and everything. And so that summer, I just practiced really hard. I said, man, I'm gonna get my playing and reading and everything better. So when I came in school, I challenged those guys and beat them, and I never looked back. So that was actually a very big moment for me, just like saying, I'm actually really good at this, And so, so 5th and 6th grade, I was in the Thomas Jefferson Elementary Orchestra and all that stuff, and did my first solo, which was with this tune called the Hunter's Chorus. And that led to, to Normandy junior high and then senior high. Junior high, I got my first jazz band, a big band experience. And I played my first solo in 8th grade. That was on this song called TSOP, Sound of Philadelphia, And then, I just kind of, was immersing myself with so much different kinds of musical experiences. I was in funk bands outside of school, and I played in a jazz group with this guy named James Matthews.
Yeah.
And I was in the marching band, the symphonic band, the top jazz band. I made that over at Normandy High School. That was called the Norseman. And that all really inspired me greatly to want to continue as a professional musician.
Yeah, Eric, and I understand that you got involved in some type of classical competition and you got a perfect score. You're the man. I mean, something like that. That's pretty impressive, man. And I was reading up on these groups that you were working with outside of school. What was it? One was the Black Warriors Express and the Soulful Young Band. Tell me about that, man.
Yeah, those groups were two of the R&B funk bands I was working with. Mm-hmm. And I think I joined both of them when I was in junior high, actually.
Wow.
So I just continued all that outside activities during my high school years. And actually, one of the things that was really important for me, I was trying to build on everything. I mean, even if it was kind of subconsciously, I was actually building on all my experiences. So I remember when I was in the jazz band, I think it was I was a sophomore actually in high school. And so Arnie Lawrence, saxophonist who used to play on the New York scene and also with Chico Hamilton, who I later worked with, he came to our school and did a master class. And also he adjudicated the jazz competition that the band was going to play while he was there. So he liked what I was doing so much that he got me a scholarship to go to the Jamie Abersol summer jazz camp. So while I was there, I was meeting guys like Dave Liebman, pianist, Dave. What's that?
James Williams.
Yeah, James Williams. Yeah, and so he was a great guy, and some other guys, Ed Soph, Todd Coolman, bass player, and some other guys, you know. So it was like really inspiring to me, and I started making goals to come to New York at that time. I remember it was one piano player who I was saying, hey man, let's go to New York, let's make that the reality. Yeah. And actually, when I decided to go to New York, he decided I'm going to college, you know. So I was on my own, but that's another story.
Man, you made that move. I remember the date because when I was reading about you, it was May 17th, 1982. That's actually my brother's birthday, May 17th. But that must have been incredible for you, just being a part of that culture during that time period. And I guess part of your early gigs was working with the late, great pianist, John Hicks, the big band. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I came up to New York on Jackie McLean's birthday. That's that same day. Oh, wow. And I always tell, you know, that was, I was so adamant about, you know, developing as a musician and developing some kind of career in New York, that I got a one-way bus ticket from St. Louis. And I just said, you know, this is it. You know, I'm not having a parachute to fall back on, and I was going to make it work. And I ran into a lot of adversity, you know, in my first, you know, years in New York, different things that happened, but I survived it. But one of the great things was that I met John Hicks when he was playing with Betty Carter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they came down to St. Louis to perform. I met him and I said, hey, I'm going to move to New York and I got a couple of pieces I wouldn't mind playing with you. So I actually went over to the house where John was staying at, and we played these 4 tunes. And I still got the tape of it, you know.
Wow. When are you gonna release it, man?
You'd be disappointed. No, it was actually very cool. You know, you know, he's great, obviously, but I played and went through the tunes, and he liked so much what I was doing that he said, hey, you know, I got this big band I'm starting. When you come up, you know, you're welcome to join the band. So I came to New York actually with a gig, you know, and we performed at 2 nights at the Public Theater in New York City. So that was a great moments for me, great moments.
Wow. And also tell me about your friend, drummer, who I know, Ronnie Barrage. And didn't he take you to DC to do one of your gigs? You played with Wynton, Avery Sharp, and those cats, man, and the late Kenny Kirkland, man. What was that like? Wow. Especially during that time, early 80s, because that was around about when Wynton was sort of doing his thing and getting it together, him and his brother, after coming from, you know, Art Blakey and those cats. But tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, it was very cool. It was one performance at this place. What was it called? I think it was called One Step Down or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And it was just a cool hang. I think we drove up and performed. We got that great review and everything. It was great. I mean, it was, I guess, in the sense that I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing in New York. So I wasn't like really afraid. I just tried to like learn the material and interact with everybody positively. So it turned out to be a great experience, and I'm so happy it happened because it was just another thing that gave me confidence that I was going in the right direction.
Yeah, and speaking of Ronnie, I run into him quite a bit. He's usually in Baltimore. He comes down, and he's a Keystone Corner sometimes in the area. But man, that's fantastic. Now, what about the late Mr. Hamilton, Chico Hamilton? Didn't you do some auditioning for him, and you ended up with a long, I guess, history with him, playing off and on throughout the 80s and 90s with the great Chico Hamilton. Tell me about that, man. What was that experience like?
Yeah, actually, it just seemed like for me, I want to emphasize this. Like for me, when I first came to New York, I had all green lights. It didn't seem like it was anything that was really. I mean, I ran into some adversity, but I didn't really kind of make that like, oh man, I took a hit on that. Okay, let me think about this. It was like if something happened that was out of my knowing, I just tried to use my senses to make it better. I'll give you an example. So I had after New York, I'm sorry, after high school, I had visited New York with James Matthews, the piano player I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so we just wanted to see New York, check things out. We went to hear, Barry Harris and his teaching situations. And it was all very inspiring, And me and him, we met two Japanese women who were very friendly and very cool. And after we stayed in contact, and I was actually supposed to stay with one, and I would call her every month, and I would say, hey, I just want to keep you informed of what's going on. I got a new teacher and everything. I got gigs, and I'm developing. I'm inspired to come up there. And she was like, yeah, great. You can stay with me. And I was like, great. I mean, because that's what I need. I need a place to stay. And I would call her every month. Everything was cool. And then that month I was leaving, I gave her the update at the beginning of the month. This was May. And so when May 17th came, when I was saying I was going to leave on Jackie McLean's birthday, the day before I called her up and I said, hey, I'm coming up, tomorrow. I'm leaving St. Louis tomorrow, so I'm going to be staying with you, right? Everything's cool. She said, no, you can't stay with me. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, we've been talking about this for a year, And so she never gave me explanation why, but she was so encouraging. I said, well, can you tell me why? But she never did. So I was very distraught over that, But I just sat back and I said, you know what? I've been planning this for over a year, because I've been thinking about this through high school, moving to New York and everything. And I said, I'm still going. I never told my parents that I didn't have a place to stay, though. I told them actually that I was still staying with her. So they were calling her number. Hey, where's it? She was hanging up on. But that was part of the adventure, But I still went up, and I actually, when I got out of Port Authority, waved a flag down a taxi cab. I said, take me to the nearest YMCA. So I stayed at the Goodwood over there on West 63rd in Central Park West. So stayed there for a while. So, I was just working it out, but did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I was asking about Chico Hamilton.
Chico. Okay, yeah, okay. Let me get back there.
The story led up to that, so that's good.
Okay, so anyway, actually, when I was staying in Brooklyn with Ronnie, took me to a party that Oliver Lake was actually having at his home.
Great player. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were just mingling and talking to different musicians, guys who I never knew actually, and a guy named Marty Ehrlich. He's actually from St. Louis, but I never knew him. So we was talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I play with this guy named Chico Hamilton." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He's like, but I'm actually ready to lead the gig. Do you want it? I was like, huh? Is that how it works? Is that how it works? Do I want it? Yeah, I want it. Yeah. And so he said, okay, I'm going to give Chico your number. and then so Chico's gonna give you a call. So that's what happened. Like probably like a day or two later, Chico called me. I went over his house. I auditioned, played some of his music. He liked what I was doing. So I guess within a couple of weeks, I was performing with him out in Long Island.
Wow.
And yeah, so actually in that period, that first year that I was with him, we wound up doing a little trip down to Florida, played down in the Florida Keys, Dade County, Miami, and like I say, some places out in Long Island and stuff like that. Actually, I think in the first year I might have played in New York City with him, but it was a beginning for me. It was fun and quite challenging on a certain level.
I can imagine. Tell me about World Saxophone Quartet. Now, when you were in that band, was David Murray in there at the time, or did David come afterwards?
Oh no, it was David. David was definitely in it.
Okay.
It was it was Hammy Blewett, yeah, Oliver Lake, and David and myself.
Yeah. What was that experience like, man, playing with that group?
I mean, it was great too. It was very challenging. Those guys are fantastic. They know what they're doing. So I had to, come in and know what I was doing. And so yeah, it was a great opportunity. We did, a fair amount of work in the couple of years I was with them. But actually, one of the best things is that when Hammy had asked me to join the band, he said that they were in the midst of doing the record I did with him, which is called Moving Right Along. Mm-hmm. And so he said that he wanted me to write 2 songs for the group, so which I did, yeah. And they made it to the record. And so he gave me that opportunity. He didn't have to, he could have said, hey, maybe this guy is going to just be here for a little while. So, you get all kinds of dynamics in the music business. You get some guys who actually understand what it's like, to be here and give you a little jump start. And then you got other guys who might say, hey, I'm not gonna just give it to this guy, So he was very cool. He was very cool, and it was gave me a lot of confidence in my writing, and arranging, for my first things to be accepted by those guys.
Great. And I guess you were being checked out by other musicians because I guess Dave Holland liked what you were doing and he gave you a call. And I still have that recording. It's funny, Dream of the Elders, I believe. I remember buying that recording and oh man. Yeah. I'm great on there, man. That's so is that how it happened? Dave just called you and said, hey man, like to have you in my band, and is that how it began?
That's one of those, I would say it's like jazz lore now. Maybe a lot of people don't know it, but I was actually doing a record with this guitar player, and he decided, it's Kelvin Bell actually, and so he decided that, hey, let's take a break. We've been in the studio a while, so let's go down to the village and just walk around, get some food and everything. So that's what we did. We walked down to the village. We ran into a bass player, Reggie Washington. Reggie, we've actually worked a lot in MIDI groups together. And so we were all just talking and everything. And Reggie just out of the blue said, hey, I hear that Steve Coleman is leaving Dave Holland's band. I said, really? Can you give me Dave's number? So he said, okay. And so a couple of days later, he called me with Dave's number. And so I called Dave up and said, hey, my name's Eric Person, just want to introduce myself. I heard that Steve Coleman was going to be leaving your band. So I just wanted to offer my services. I think you like what I'm doing. So he said, oh, okay, yeah, so let's get together. Let's do some playing. I said, great, and so he said, let's do something next week. Let's look at next Wednesday. I'll call you and then I'll give you the address and set up the time and everything. I said, okay, perfect. So the day before came, Wednesday came, no call from Dave. So I was like, okay, well, maybe he was, maybe he forgot. So I called him up. Hey, this is Eric Person. Oh, Eric Person. Hey, how you doing? So yeah, things got busy, so I wasn't able to do that. But let's look at next Wednesday. I think next Wednesday would be good. So I'll do the same thing. I'll call you the day before, all the information. Same thing. Tuesday came, Wednesday came, no call. So I was just like, I called him up again. He was like, oh man, Eric, I'm so sorry. Stuff has been busy lately, but let's look at next week. I'll just give you a call and we'll set it up. Nothing. Didn't call or anything. So I was just like, oh man, forget this, man. This is a pipe dream. It's like this guy, he's just pulling my leg. He's just trying to make a fool out of me or whatever, And so I just stopped. I didn't call him again. I just thought it was just like a dead lead, And but actually 6 months later or so, he called me up and said, hey, I'm gonna be down in Harlem. That's where I was living at the time. He said, can we play at your place? I said, sure. So he came over, he brought some music of his, and we just played duo, working on some of his tunes. Mm-hmm. He liked what I was doing, and he said, I'm gonna send you the music next week. And I actually called his wife at the time, his late wife, Claire, and she confirmed that he was sending some music. But that's how I began. And actually that band, with Steve Nelson, Gene Jackson, myself, that we will rehearse like every month, like once every month for probably like three months or so, and just kind of getting the concept, our unity and everything. And then at the beginning of '94 is when we did our first performance. So yeah, it's
I love the music y'all were doing. It was great. I mean, Dave is one of my favorite musicians and composers. Great bass player. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about maybe I would say he's probably my all-time favorite up there with Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk. How'd you hook up with McCoy Tyner, man?
Yeah, that was actually a product of me knowing Joe Ford, saxophonist Joe Ford. So Joe Ford, I knew him through obviously Ronnie Barrage, but the thing that Joe was playing with his big band, but he was also playing with Jerry Gonzalez's Ford Apache band. So I guess every once in a while there was some conflicts. So he started calling me to sub, in McCoy's big band. So it wound up working out really great. And, that was an all-star band. It was just, everybody was, the heavy hitters on the scene, Eddie Henderson, John Stubblefield. It was just so many guys, and Avery Sharp. Well, actually, when I think Charlotte Moffett was doing it at the time. Late.
Wasn't trombonist Steve Teray in that band too?
Yes, he was. Yeah, and so it was just a great hang. It was great cast, great musicians. So it's always great when you're in that kind of company,
Eric, what would you say you've learned the most from working with giants like a McCoy Tyner, a John Hicks, and a Chico Hamilton? What's your takeaway, from working with those guys? Mm-hmm. Or the first thing that comes to your mind,
They always had great passion for what they were doing, and their knowledge of music, what they brought, they could do it in an instant. So I think when you just kind of like, if somebody just pointed at you to do whatever you're doing, it's like you gotta deliver, and who could say, McCoy Tyner, his style is just in everything he did. Yeah. If he played a funk song, it would be McCoy, so same thing with somebody like Hammy Blewett. It's just the way he played with so much energy and passion, it's going to just come out, and you can't. I think there's even a saying that, nothing really ever gets accomplished without passion. So you have to have that passion. And you have to have just that energy to push through adversity, because I heard that McCoy after he left John Coltrane's group, that he really didn't have many gigs.
No, I think he had to drive the cab or do something like that for a while. It was tough.
He had to drive a cab, and then he also started performing with Ike and Tina Turner. So
Yeah.
It's no road just paved with instant success in jazz. You have to actually work for it, you know.
Hey, tell me about these bands that you formed over the years, Metaphor and Metamorphosis. Very creative names, man. What was the inspiration or the starting catalyst for those?
I'm actually pretty good at making up names. you know. Actually, Metaphor was my first band that I kind of gave a name to. I guess before it was always like the Eric Person Quartet or something, but I was more clear about the direction of the music. It was, what people might call straight ahead jazz, but the focus was my own compositions.
Right.
So at the time, my gigs, were always the big gigs I was doing, whether festivals or whatever, it would always contain a lot of my original material. And that didn't change for quite a while. I don't actually use the term metaphor anymore. It's a lot of meta stuff going on now, so I've kind of moved on from that. But I'm actually kind of trying to balance things a lot more, with songs that other people write and my own compositions. But that was the Metaphor way, kind of, straight ahead, and then my original compositions. Metamorphosis, that was a name I kind of put to the music that I would make for my record, The Grand Illusion. And so that was more of like an electric project, what I used to call my rhythm and groove project. That was actually really a good project that still has yet to be fully realized. Actually, like a lot of my record projects have been like almost like seeds that have been planted and they're going to be revisited. So I'm actually working on a band concept now that should come out on my next CD, because like after I stopped using that term or the name metaphor, I just been kind of saying Eric Person Quartet, but now I'm kind of clear that I want to start another band. Like I've been kind of cutting and pasting for like the last few years. And so I even said to someone recently, I was like, I kind of miss having like a core band, because a lot comes out of that, and so this next phase I'll be doing that, having a new name and at least, focus on that.
Speaking of your early recordings, man, because I go back with you. I mean, I remember hearing Arrival, and
Arrival, yeah.
Those two, man, were really nice. You got good reviews on those recordings. I remember seeing something, I don't know if it was Jazz Times or Downbeat or one of them, but those were fantastic, man. I mean, especially for your debut. Arrival was real nice. I like those.
Oh, good.
Also, man, I've always looked at you as like a star celebrity. I remember the first time I remember seeing you in the Blue Note documentary, Story of Modern Jazz. Man, you were talking some stuff on there. You said this is the bebop laboratory. You were breaking it down, man, and just talking about the musicians, how they would just work out stuff. But what was it like being in a film, man, in that documentary?
I mean, that was one of those flukes, actually, or at least getting into it. The guy who directed it was somebody who Chico Hamilton knew, and I can't remember where we met him, or I guess he's European, so we met him over in Europe. And so he came to New York to make this documentary, and he just called me out of the blue, and he said, hey, we're in Harlem and we need to be showed around, maybe you could show us around like the different landmarks and everything. So I got on my bike. I'm an avid cyclist. So, I didn't know what to expect, but they were just shooting me going from place to place. And I was just kind of giving a little brief kind of history lesson on, places like Minton's and some Small's Paradise. And another theater that was there, I think the Renaissance Theater or something like that. Maybe we actually didn't do the Apollo. But that would have been also great to do. But the rest is history. I mean, I made it into that thing, and I was like, oh, this is great.
Eric, it was great, man. It was good seeing you. And, I think 95, 96 is when it came up, but a lot of the greats were still with us at the time. Max Roach, and some others that they had in that too. Andrew Hill, that was great. Tell me about a friend of yours. You guys have been collaborating for a while, and it was like a marriage, an instant marriage when you guys first connected, Mr. Houston Person. Like the two of you, person to person, the two of you have this thing, man. And I guess you guys recognized it when you guys met, is like a connection. Tell me about him and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, actually, our first performance together was back in 2009, and at this jazz series that this guy put on up in Rochester, New York. So it was so successful that we just promised that we would do it again. And so it wasn't until 2017 that we performed again. We actually did 2 nights at Dizzy's. And after that, I said, hey, let's make sure we get this on wax. So the next year, I got us in the studio, and it came out really good. And so actually we actually did 3 performances this year, and we're going to do even more next year. I'm trying to actually build it up every year. Houston has a lot of great insight, a lot of great energy. He's still playing on a high level. And I talk to him like, at least I try and talk to him a couple of times a week.
Yeah, he's heard this with Emmett Cohen. He's in my
I heard. Yeah. And so, I've actually, I'm 59 years old now, but it's like his mentorship with me goes beyond just music. I talk to him a lot about his career choices. How would he deal in a certain situation? And I realized that, if I'd have known, if we had been really communicating back in, let's say, the 80s, early 90s, I'd have a different career now, because it was actually things I did that he would say, no, I don't think that's good. And when a Houston person says, I don't think that's a good choice, or you should try this, you have to listen. You shouldn't say, nah, man, I'm going to do this. No, you listen, you understand what he's saying, because he's taken a lot of different career choices, and it's given him longevity, where other guys have, let's say, went for the money and they had struggled. They had went up and it went down, So I respect that he's been in the game a long time, And so you'll hear on the next record he's supposed to produce my next CD, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we discussed the concept, and we've come to a meeting of minds actually on it. And some things started out. That's why I like our mentorship, the mentorship aspect. We work with him, because certain things he said in the beginning, and I said, okay, let's think about it in terms of, like, let's say, personnel. And then recently I came to him and said, hey, I think, I need to go in a little bit of a different direction with the personnel. And so he was actually supportive of it. And I thought I was going to get some kind of blowback, but he's actually looking to support and bring out the best in what I'm doing. So it's going to be a win-win situation, no compromise.
Fantastic, man. I look forward to, future, gigs or work that you guys do together. That'll be really, really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna check him out this week because he's in town.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a couple other musicians that you've worked with. Tell me about Vernon Reid, man. How did that come about?
Yeah, Vernon's great. We actually worked in my formative years with this drummer, Ronald Shannon Jackson. And so when I joined Shannon's, actually, let me just go back a little bit. When I joined Chico, which was September of 1983, I worked with him a little less than a year. And then I got the call to join Ronald Shannon Jackson's Decoding Society. And I didn't know Ronald Shannon. I never heard him. I didn't know his music. And actually what happened was I was talking to Joe Ford. See, Joe Ford has been instrumental in a couple of my connections, musical connections. So I was talking to him. He said, yeah, I'm actually playing with this violin player up at Small's Paradise. You should come in and sit in. So I went up there and sat in with him, and the violin player who was with Ronald Shannon Jackson's band, his name is Akbar Ali. And so he said when the chair opened up in Shannon's band, and he immediately thought of me. So he called me up and said, I should come down and, play for him and whatever. And so I did that. And, Shannon asked me to go out on the road, do a US tour with him. So I did that and joined the band. But I met Vernon in that band. Vernon was kind of like on his last phase with that band, because Vernon was getting 100% behind his Living Color concept. And so, Vernon's a funny guy, between him and this other guy, Reverend Bruce Johnson, we just had so much fun and laughter on the road, and I've worked with Vernon at least one other time at a festival, and also Will Calhoun, his drummer.
Yeah, I love that whole band. Yeah, those guys were something else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I would love to do some more with Vernon on some level. I have a Ronald Shannon Jackson band. Well, I don't want to call it tribute band because it's not that. It's just we perform his music. So one day he might guest with the band or something. It'd be great.
Yeah. Hey, what was it like working with Bootsy Collins?
Bootsy, he's a great person. He's a great soulful player, funky as all get out. Yeah. And actually, when I did the tour, it was all back in 2008. When I worked with him, one thing I noticed that he would go out into the crowd, and he would just start kind of making up these little chants or whatever, or slogans or whatever you want to call it, and it just clicked. I was like, wow, he made up that on that Parliament record. It just sounded. You could just tell it just came out from his DNA, So yeah, he was great. It was a great time, to work with him. But yeah.
Tell me now, are you still teaching? I know you're an educator. Are you still at Bard College?
Yes. Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Is that something you enjoy doing, teaching and just sharing with students? Because I know you've been there for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been there actually 4 years. This is my 4th year, and it's enjoyable. I really have tried to do more teaching, like only privately, and then also in that institution. I don't have a lot of students over there, but the students I've taught is giving me a lot of enjoyment, and actually I feel it's made me a better teacher, piano player. Everything. It's just like, it's very enriching for me. So it's teaching or being an educator is something I want to expand on in the future.
Fantastic. Hey, Eric, let me ask you this. If I were to come over to your house right now and we were to hang out, what type of music are you listening to at home? If you're just home chilling, man, what does Eric Person listen to when he's that varies. I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube, actually. So what I do is, like, if it's something I haven't heard, I'm probably going to listen to it. So it could be an old Lee Morgan record. It could be some Train. It could be some Miles. It could be Eddie Harris. It could be Rahsaan Roland Kirk. It could be so many, Chick Corea. Yeah. Anything I haven't heard before. I'm always kind of like, I want to hear this. I want to make sure I don't have any piece of the puzzle that I haven't heard. So I'm actually been listening to a lot of Rahsaan Roland Kirk lately. I love his music, and I get a lot of insight in, like, if I get like a box set, I'm trying to like piece together like why, like let's say in his case,
why he, recorded this particular record at this time. Because even like if you look at my discography as a leader, I kind of in some way try and think like, hey, I want to see about doing projects that make sense. So like even what I'm going to do after my latest CD, Blue Vision, I want it to make sense, instead of why did he do that? Because you can listen to a lot of artists and you'll be like, they were doing good, and then all of a sudden it was like boom. It's like they went into an abyss of uncreativity and questions about their business and musical choices. And so I control my music through my label Distinction Records, and so I try and think of that. What makes the most sense to do next. So yeah, to answer your question again and again, yeah, I listen to a lot of different stuff. If I listen to something commercially, it might be somebody who I listened to a long time ago too. Somebody like I like this guy Stokely, who was with Mint Condition. Yeah. So listen to some of his stuff too. So
beautiful, beautiful. Look, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today. You're a class act, and we actually look to hearing more from you in 2023. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Mr. Eric Person, and as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.
Thank you. Peace.